sure that we did that correctly today. Still kind of, getting the hang of that. Let's see here. Are we live over there? No. Not coming through. Hold on, guys. 8:59 Wednesday. It's on there. Oh, now we're streaming. Okay, so we should be good over there now. Weird. I don't know why that's not working. What in the hell have I done? It says that it's streaming, guys. Why do they have to make this so complicated on YouTube? You'd think... Yeah, here we go. Okay, we're live. Okay, so yeah, we're live. All right, now that's good. So there was just a slight delay there. So now we're live everywhere. How is everyone doing? Yeah, I broke it, Nomi. Fever Flav, good to see you out there as well. Much love to you. Shout out to all of you guys out there in the live chat. It's good to see you guys checking in. With that being said, let's just go ahead and get started with the news of the day. Over at Breitbart.com, we have our first story. Eileen Higgins wins Miami mayoral runoff election, the first Democrat to win in Miami in 30 years. And there's essentially two big reasons for this. Number one, the Republicans ran a really crappy candidate. Number two, Republican turnout in this election was pretty much abysmal. So hopefully this is the wake-up call for Republicans. You can't just sleep on the elections that don't happen, during the midterms and during the general election, right, for president. Every election matters, including the local and municipal elections. And it just really sucks to see the local GOP of Florida here totally dropping the ball on this, and then also the voters dropping the ball on this as well. So this should really serve as a massive wake-up call. DC Panic is out there. Good to see you. Luann V, long time no see, my friend, says hi, Pixels. Hello. It's good to see you out there. Know Me For You says there I subbed on YouTube and liked it. Right on. That should help more eyes and ears make their way over. And really, I'm just streaming over there basically for the purpose of getting people over to Pilled once we flip over on the halfway mark. So hopefully that helps bring some more people over. But anyways, let's just go ahead and jump into this story here. Former Miami-Dade County Commissioner Eileen Higgins won the Miami mayoral runoff election on Tuesday, the first Democrat mayor elected in 30 years. Higgins won 59% of the vote in a crowded race that included 13 candidates. Miami City Manager Emilio Gonzalez came in second with just 41% of the vote. Our city chose a new direction, Higgins told a crowd of supporters. You chose competence over chaos, results over excuses, and a city government that finally works for you. Typical political jargon bullshit there. While the race was officially nonpartisan, Higgins had the backing of prominent Democrats, while Republicans, including Governor Ron DeSantis and President Trump, endorsed Gonzalez, reported CBS News. Out of 175,692 registered voters, 37,496 cast ballots on Tuesday, a turnout of 21.3% according to official records. So essentially, the turnout was garbage. Garbage turnout for this election. If it was different, if the turnout was basically all the registered voters, the Republican probably would have won this race. But unfortunately, and this is a historical problem for Republicans, we do really, really bad on, your off elections. Higgins ran on issues such as affordable housing and pledged to use city land to build new housing for working families. She also criticized the Trump administration's current enforcement of immigration law, calling it inhumane and cruel, though she did pledge to work with the administration on issues that they could agree on. No more endless delays for families trying to fix a home or small business trying to open, Higgins said. We will cut red tape, repair what's broken, and modernize City Hall. We will confront the affordability crisis with the urgency Miami families need. See, she's a socialist, so that's not going to go very well. We will make our streets safer by supporting law enforcement and strengthening community partnerships. We will protect Biscayne Bay. Higgins hailed her opponent, Emilio Gonzalez, as a good man. I just spoke with my opponent, Emilio Gonzalez, a good man that I've known for many, many years and genuinely respect, Higgins said. He cares about our community. That is what unites us. As noted by WLRN, outgoing Mayor Francis X. Suarez, who briefly ran for president in 2024, is term limited. Suarez and 3 of the 5 city commissioners tried to postpone the mayoral election to November 2026, arguing that the move would save money and improve turnout. It would have also given Suarez and some other local elected officials an extra year in office, noted the outlets. So There is that, guys, once again from Breitbart.com. This hopefully serves as a massive wake-up call. A massive, massive wake-up call. Lord knows that it's sorely needed on the conservative side of politics in the United States right now. Things are not going really to plan, it would seem. So there it is. Next one here comes from Just the News. Georgia Democrat projected to win state House seat in district Trump won last year. A Georgia Democrat on Tuesday is projected to win a state House seat in a congressional district President Trump won last year, on the same night his party won the Miami mayoral race for the first time in nearly 30 years. Georgia's Eric Gisler was projected to win against Republican Mac Guest the fourth in the election for House District 121, with the former receiving about 200 votes more than the latter out of more than 11,000 in final unofficial returns, according to the Associated Press, which as of Wednesday morning had yet to officially declare a winner. I think we had the right message for the time, Gisler told the AP. A lot of what I would call traditional conservatives held their nose and voted Republican last year on the promise of low prices and whatever else they were selling, but they hadn't received that. Guest didn't respond to a request for comment. President Trump won the district last year by 12 points, according to Decision Desk HQ, the Hill News outlet reported. Last month, Georgia Democrats also flipped 2 seats on the State Public Service Commission. In addition, Democrats won the New Jersey and Virginia governor races. So there is that once again from justthenews.com. Really, same thing with this story here. This needs to serve as a wake-up call for Republicans. Republicans need to get their asses get a fire lit up under their asses to get something done for the American people before the midterms come around, or the midterms are going to be very bad. Next one here comes from the Gateway Pundit. Ohio Democrat sworn into city council seat hours after arrest on sex abuse charges involving children. So the Democrats literally elected a pedophile. Bruce Q. Wayne says, "Howdy, brother. Wishing you a very Merry Hanukkah, Happy Christmas, and a wonderful New Year." Much love to you, Bruce Q. Wayne. As always, it's fantastic to see you out there. Hopefully, you are still rocking the absolutely epic mustache, and always enjoy your warm and patriotic comments, my friend. It's great to see you out there. Ohio Democrat Gerald Dixon was sworn into office for a second term on the Whitehall City Council on Tuesday, just hours after he was released from custody on his own recognizance following his arrest on child sex abuse charges. Dixon denies the charges. The 64-year-old Dixon, who said this year he has been a Democrat since 1980, overwhelmingly won a second term to the nonpartisan Whitehall City Council Ward 1 seat in November with nearly 70% of the vote. Whitehall is a suburb of Columbus. WBNS TV showed dueling video images of Dixon at his bond hearing Tuesday and being sworn in just hours after his release. Here's an excerpt from the Columbus Dispatch report on Dixon. A Whitehall City Council member charged with sexually abusing several boys since the 1990s is denying the charges and has taken his oath of office for another term in council chambers. Gerald Dixon was arrested and charged December 8th by Whitehall police, accused of sexually abusing at least 8 boys since 1996. On December 9th, a Franklin County Municipal Court judge released Dixon from the Franklin County Jail on his own recognizance as he was deemed not a threat to flee. Hours later, Dixon appeared in Whitehall City Council chambers as scheduled to take his oath of office, having been re-elected to another 4-year term in the November 4th election to represent the city's 1st ward. Dixon has been charged with felony counts of gross sexual imposition and compelling prostitution. Whitehall police said Dixon's arrest was part of a larger investigation and that he had been under investigation since 2020 before he was elected to city council. Whitehall police were assisted by the FBI, police said December 9th during a press conference the day after Dixon's arrest. WCMH-TV reported the case could go back decades. Police say they have evidence that a Whitehall City Councilman spent years and perhaps decades grooming underage victims, leading to his arrest Monday night on felony charges. Allegations that Gerald Dixon was grooming boys were brought to police's attention in late 2020, with an investigation beginning in mid-2023, Chief Mike Crispin said Tuesday morning. The evidence is pretty overwhelming, and this started long before he was on council, Crispin said. I'm not sure if he was aware that we were looking at him, but certainly we were before he ever became a council member. At least 8 victims have come forward, and police said they often exhibited signs of sexual victimization, both mentally and physically, which halted some to share their full experiences with Dixon. Dixon, who has served since 2021, is facing felony charges of gross sexual imposition and compelling prostitution. Dixon's being accused of requesting victims to perform sexually explicit acts and of paying an underage, cognitively impaired individual to perform sexual acts. The investigation into Dixon stretched past Ohio into New York and Michigan, prompting Whitehall police to reach out to the FBI. Dixon was arrested Monday about 6 p.m. without incident. During a search, electronic devices were found with explicit material and writings, as well as drawings of young boys. Detectives described it as a hoarder house, Crispin said. Video of the Whitehall police briefing on Tuesday is available below. We will go ahead and take a look at that. Here's Dixon City Council bio. It says Gerald Dixon is a native Whitehallian and a proud graduate of Whitehall Yearling High School. After graduation from WYHS, Counselor Dixon embarked on a successful acting career in New York City and Hollywood before returning to his roots and purchasing his family home on Doney Street, where he now resides. While acting is no longer his primary vocation, he continues to be an active member of the Screen Actors Guild. Counselor Dixon has always had a strong desire to give back to his community through public service and is eager to bring his passion for Whitehall, city planning, and sociology to the council table. He also has a passion for debate and good conversation and welcomes his neighbors to reach out to discuss all things Whitehall. I guess they failed to mention the guy was into kids. In his spare time, Counselor Dixon tends to home improvements, his cat Alex's well-being, visiting friends, reading, gardening, movies, writing, painting, and paying bills, along with, what they forgot to mention, victimizing children. Favorite things about Whitehall? Whitehall is all the little things that favor our lives here. The golden slanted sunlight of evening in John Bishop Park during the summer months as baseball and basketball games wind down. The roar of the crowd when the Rams score a touchdown on a chilly autumn night, the kindly faces of your neighbors volunteering at events, the always heartfelt earnestness of our little town's parade entrance during Independence Day, the serenity of a Sunday morning, the everyday poetry, beauty, and rightness of regular folks going about their business, raising children, shopping, and living their lives, and of course the support this community has for itself. When all is said and done, it is home. So, there is that. Once again, guys, from the Gateway Pundit. And here is the Whitehall police detailing their investigation into this city councilman. Now, hopefully, what ends up happening is the charges and his subsequent trial end up getting in the way of his government service, so to speak, and he ends up resigning the post. Let's go ahead and check it out.
Let me first read a statement to you from the department, and then I'll make a couple comments, and then I'll open it up to some questions. So first, between 5 and 6 p.m. last night, the Whitehall Division of Police Detective Bureau executed an arrest warrant and a search warrant at the residence of Whitehall resident Gerald Dixon. Dixon was taken into custody without incident and has been formally charged with felony compelling prostitution and felony gross sexual imposition. Additional charges may be forthcoming as the investigation continues. This arrest is the culmination of a long-term, multi-state investigation initiated after allegations were first brought to our attention in late 2020, early 2021. Mr. Dixon was alleged to have engaged in an inappropriate conduct with juvenile males. As detectives pursued these allegations, the scope of the investigation expanded through Ohio, into New York, and into Michigan. Throughout this effort, numerous individuals disclosed interactions and behaviors that would lead a reasonable person to believe they were being groomed for sexual exploitation. As interviews progressed, individuals often identified others with similar experiences. Ultimately, investigators identified several persons exhibiting signs consistent with both mental and physical sexual victimization. Some victims were too emotionally impacted to share their full experience. Others provided detailed accounts of inappropriate requests, including situations interrupted by vigilant parents, as well as incidents in which Dixon allegedly paid an underage and cognitively impaired individual for sexually explicit acts. To date, we have interviewed 8 individuals connected to the investigations with age of initiation of about 14 years old. During the execution of the search warrant, detectives seized electronic devices from the residents, along with a significant amount of explicit material and writings. These devices will be analyzed in partnership with the FBI and BCI. We want to express our sincere appreciation to the FBI for exceptionally swift, thorough, and professional support in this case. Their collaboration has been instrumental in advancing this investigation in a timely and effective manner. At this time, we believe there may be additional victims who have not yet been identified. We urge anyone who may have been harmed or anyone with information relevant to this case to contact the Whitehall Division of Police and to ask to speak to one of our detectives. With Mr. Dixon now in custody, it is safe for these victims to come forward. We also want to emphasize that our priority is the well-being of these victims. We ask that the media and the public respect their privacy. This investigation is focused on supporting survivors, preventing further harm, and ensuring that no one is re-victimized through exposure or speculation. With that said, I will give you a couple comments and then open it up to questions. First and foremost, sitting behind me, come out of the room of the office where several of these youth said that they had been taken into, had been in that room. There was a lot of other things that I can't show you. Additionally, I'm going to ask you first. I know some of you might start zooming, so I'm going to ask you not to zoom because we haven't identified these people, right? Help
We
you?
need to move it off.
Okay.
We need to move it a little bit so that we can get it, because some of the words are very offensive.
You want an out of camera view?
Yes.
All right. Or you can blur it, or whichever you want to do. Yeah, some of the words are somewhat explicit. So that was, when you walked into the room, that was up against the wall. Additionally, on an easel was this photo here. Initially, that didn't mean much to us until we dug deeper and realized this was the original victim that we first spoke to from 1996. We have spoken to him. He's emotionally distraught, doesn't want to talk about this much. This picture next to his 1996 photo was just recently drawn on the easel by Mr. Dixon in the last year. It's the obsession with the youth that we are focused on, and the concern that we have that this is a much broader issue than what we already have, but we have enough as it stands. So with that said, I'm trying really hard not to have to go into the explicit details. In fact, I won't give you explicit details of things that were paid for, acts that were paid for. They're quite disgusting, but we have evidence of it and we have recordings, and we asked the FBI's experts to help us with the interviews. That said, I'll open it up to any questions.
I'm sorry, I'm confused. The piece of evidence, this is a piece of evidence that was taken from his home, is that what you're saying?
From it, correct.
And so are these children in these pictures alleged victims or just pictures that he had that...
His artwork, I think, we don't know. We haven't talked to him on that. We haven't answered those questions. That's why I'm asking not to zoom in on them, because they could be victims. We're not sure. But they are sort of those materials, if you're familiar with people who do what's referred to as grooming of youth, these are the types of things you'll find in those offices. That's what makes this evidence for us. It's evidence that on the low end that I can bring out here. I'm not bringing out the big stuff.
What's your reaction to these crimes that he's committed, especially when folks might have previously seen him as a leader of the community?
Well, that's a great question, because that's a two-part answer. The first thing is you ask what's my reaction, which is it the same every time I see these types of things. It's disgusting. We have a problem in our nation with this kind of problem, from human trafficking to exploiting children to you name it. Generally, these people it doesn't start in a vacuum, right? Something usually has happened to them as well, which we have strong evidence of that as well. And as far as the question about leadership, yeah, I mean, everybody has an image of what you're supposed to represent. Whitehall stands for a specific thing, and so with that person sitting in a seat, in a position of authority, it not only creates a sort of a bad image for leadership in general, government in general, but it also sends a strong message to the victims. Like, this is a powerful guy, and that was brought up to us a few times.
The victims are from New York, Ohio, and Michigan. Do you believe it's local victims from Ohio and the New York and Michigan victims? How did they get here?
They were originally local here. Mr. Dixon is involved in art and involved in theater, I believe. And almost all of them are interested in that same topic, and that's sort of the crux or the things that brings them in.
How did the first victim come forward?
The first victim didn't come forward on their own. Family members and friends brought it to our attention.
How old was Dixon when this started?
I have no idea.
How old is he now?
I'm not sure. How old is he? What's his-
64.
64.
And when did this investigation start?
The official part of it started probably the end of 23, maybe middle of 23. It was brought to our attention. The way these things kind of work, and I'm sure I don't want to say things you don't already know, but the way these things work is you generally will get someone who will tell you something, and you'll hear phrases like, it just seems weird, or something just doesn't seem right. That was the end of 2020, early 2021. A consistent complaint and concern with youth selling water bottles. This seemed benign. He just didn't like them selling water bottles. But then it became not that. It became multiple calls to the police department about these kids selling water bottles, and turning out some of the kids saying that they were working for him, and then he got mad because they wouldn't work for him anymore. And then hindsight 2020, we now know what that was about. But at the time, that's how those things sort of start. So you don't initiate an actual investigation in 2021 or 2020 until you start getting people telling you, hey, there's more to this. Then we went back to those cases, and that's what led us to probably the most severe one we have right now.
Did Dixon act alone, or are there other adults that will be involved in this?
We don't know.
You showed us pieces of these artwork when you went into his residence. Was there a large abundance of these pieces of art involving minors and children?
There was a lot of stuff, and I think the way the detectives told me or sort of related to me was it was more like a hoarder house with a lot of that kind of stuff, a lot of writings, years worth of journaling writings and things of that nature.
Do you know how far back this went and roughly how many victims could be involved?
We know that at the very minimum, we believe this goes at least back to 1996 era. The number of victims, that's what we're asking. We're asking for your help. Generally, if you followed a few of these types of cases, starts off slow. People start hearing about it. They feel safe. Some people feel safe to come forward. They come forward, and then we start getting a ton more stuff. Additionally, we did a search warrant, so we have more things that will need to be digital forensics will have to be done with them, and we want to get some assistance with ICAC, FBI, BCI team to help us with that.
How confident are you in the evidence about this case? I mean, we're talking about a public leader here in Whitehall.
I wouldn't be standing here if I wasn't 100% positive. 100%.
Do any of the allegations relate at all to his work on city council, and is there any evidence that he abused his position of power?
I have no evidence of that. Some of the potential victims were often mentioning to us concerned that he was going to be mayor. So they brought it up themselves. I don't know if that's something they just thought on their own or if that was what was told to them. We need further investigation and assistance with that, which we'll still work on. I have no evidence that I'm aware of anything associated with council in this issue.
When did the FBI get involved?
We called them a couple weeks ago, I think. A couple weeks ago. When we started talking, one of these victims is cognitively impaired. And while I have great detectives, they're not super skilled at pulling information from people who are cognitively impaired. And the FBI is super good at that. So we had requested them to help us with that. Could they help us get an interview, make sure we're hearing what we think we're hearing, make sure in fact, we were like, is this real? Right? For the same reasons you're thinking, this is a city council member, right? So they were they were super good at it. They flew someone in here from out of town that's one of their best experts in it. And they came in and interviewed him and had the same concerns we had.
So we know there's been police interviews and FBI interviews. Has there been a forensic counselor that's been involved in this?
That's what this FBI agent's trained in. Yeah, we were going to take him to the medical facilities to do it, but we were advised by them that these people are significantly better, especially when it comes to being able to testify for court for this same stuff. So we went above that, actually.
Was he on any committees that would have put him close to children?
I'm not aware of that.
How was the original contact made? Was it online? Was it in person?
Well, with which person?
I guess the 8 that you know of.
So our first indication started, I said, back in 2021. Those were just him calling in and complaining about youth. So that kind of gets our radar opened up a little bit. The very first actual complaint about it was initially an online message to us. And then we reached out to that person and followed up. Then from there, you just start building the case. One more question?
I know there's been some conflict between the FOP, this police department, et cetera. At some point, I know Dixon was calling for an investigation, and some in the community are going to say that this is retaliatory. How would you respond to that?
Well, I mean, I understand the conspiratorial nature of it. The evidence is pretty overwhelming, and this started long before he was on council. I'm not sure if he was aware that we were looking at him, but certainly we were before he ever became a council member.
What did he do before being on council that would put him close to these?
I'm only aware of him working in some restaurants and potentially claims to have been an actor, but that's all I know. Anything? Mayor, you have anything you want to?
Oh, sure.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for coming out. In fact, before I make my statement, I'm just going to turn that around. Is that fine? And so, one, I thank you all for coming out this morning. I thank you for your concerns and for your patience as this investigation unfolds. My main concern as it relates to this matter are with the victims, for them getting the support that they need, for getting them the assistance that they need, and getting them the justice that they deserve. Given the severity of the charges, given the troubling nature of the acts, given the charges that have been made against Gerald Dixon, I presently believe I am been thoroughly briefed on this matter. I believe that it is in the best interest of the victims. I believe it's in the best interest of this community that Gerald Dixon resign his position immediately with Whitehall City Council and face the allegations and get the justice that he deserves. Thank you.
Anything you can do to force that to happen or force him to step down?
So we're looking into our charter rules, our council rules, to see what options are available.
From the microphone, please.
Thank you, Mr. President.
For the record, I'm Tom Potter, President of Whitehall City Council. To answer your question, we're currently reviewing our council rules to see what provisions are in there, if that is a available option, and we will be ongoing in that educational process of council. We'll have that figured out here pretty quickly.
Tom, when did you find out about this? What about an investigation, please?
Yesterday, the mayor called me.
So we learned that he was supposed to be sworn in tonight. What happens with his seat or this process now?
Well, the process would still move forward if, in fact, he showed up and that, he was there for the swearing in, then he would get sworn in, unless some other action were to take place.
Thank you all.
Thank you, Tom.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming out.
So there is that, guys. It's just unbelievable, guys. unfreaking believable. The Democrats would swear this guy in after being charged with such concerning crimes. So there it is. Yeah, I guess the Democrat Party has no issue swearing literal pedophiles into city council spots. ATD 1204 and Special Patriot 72 in DeBar. Good to see you guys out there, as always. Hopefully you are having a wonderful Wednesday. So there it is, guys. We'll move into the next story here, which comes from the nationalpulse.com. And here they go again. House Democrats move to impeach RFK Jr. and Hegseth. So, Representative Haley Stevens filed articles of impeachment against Department of Health and Human Services Secretary RFK Jr. on Wednesday. Stevens accused Kennedy of failing in his role and criticized him for allegedly neglecting science and public safety. Quote, today I formally introduced articles of impeachment against Robert F. Kennedy Jr. RFK Jr. has turned his back on science and the safety of the American people. Michiganders cannot take another day of his chaos, she stated on social media. Responding to the impeachment move, HHS spokesman Andrew Nixon said, Secretary Kennedy remains focused on the work of improving Americans' health and lowering costs, not on partisan political stunts. Meanwhile, fellow Michigan Democrat Representative Shri Thanadar has filed articles of impeachment against Secretary of War Pete Hegseth. The India-born congressman cited false reports alleging that Hegseth ordered a secondary strike on cartel operatives aboard a drug boat who had survived an initial attack. Quote, Pete Hegseth has been using the United States military to extrajudicially assassinate people without evidence of any crime, Thanadar alleged, adding former military attorneys have come out and asserted that his conduct constitutes war crimes. We cannot allow his reprehensible conduct to continue, which is why I filed these articles to impeach him. Admiral Frank Bradley, the head of U.S. Special Operations Command, who approved both the initial strike and follow-up actions, has repeatedly stated that Secretary Hegseth never gave an alleged kill everybody order cited by Thanadar. The National Pulse reported last week that Admiral Bradley provided video to a congressional panel showing the two cartel operatives who survived the initial strike climb onto the wreckage and begin gathering the vessel's cargo. The admiral stated that it appeared the two survivors were attempting to contact other nearby cartel boats in an effort to salvage the drug shipment. At this juncture, the survivors were deemed to be still in the fight and valid targets. So there is that, once again, guys, from the nationalpulse.com. And obviously, with the current makeup of the House and the Senate, there's no way either of these impeachments are going to be moving forward in any meaningful way. So I really wouldn't worry about this. But the Democrats, just completely and utterly unhinged, guys. Every single day, it seems, they come up, with another made-up story, another, democracy-ending scandal that's completely fake and just complete nonsense that they can try to use in order to muddy the waters and make this administration seem like a dumpster fire, even though that for the most part it's been quite successful thus far. So there it is. Next one here from thefederalist.com. According to documents, Wisconsin judge in Trump electors case didn't write his own ruling, which it doesn't come as a surprise, but it's just it's kind of shocking just how incompetent a lot of these judges are, lazy, unwilling to do their job. And of course, that doesn't even, go to mention the unbelievable bias in the judiciary branch as of late. Boys Blanc 89 out there with a very delicious cookie. Thank you very much for the cookie, Boys Blanc 89, as always. Much appreciated. We're at 5% to the goal for the day. Somebody out there threw 4 gold pills at me. They're a complete phantom. I don't know who they are because it doesn't tell you unless it's 100 gold pills or more, I think. But anyways, whoever that was, thank you for that as well. Also, my Nexus hanging out over there on Rumble. Good to see you over there on Rumble, my Nexus. And there it is. Looks like we are caught up for the time being. So let's go ahead and just jump right in over at the Federalist. And this is just... can't make this stuff up, guys. Explosive new court documents unsealed Tuesday detail the alleged judicial misconduct of the Wisconsin judge presiding over a politically driven criminal case targeting the attorneys who represented the 2020 campaign in the battleground Badger State. Dane County Circuit Court Judge John Hyland, and we talked about this yesterday, had outside help from a former judge with a grudge, according to the court filings. Hyland, in so many words, told defendants to go pound sand. He will not remove himself from the case, and the march to a perfectly timed election year trial will go on. To the people who feel more than ever that it will be impossible to get a fair trial in far-left Dane County, the judge effectively said, "Trust me." Earlier this week, attorneys for Jim Troupis, President Donald Trump's Wisconsin recount counselor following the rigged 2020 presidential election, filed several motions, not only asking Hyland and his staff to step aside, but to vacate the judge's August order rejecting the defendant's motion to dismiss the case. The omnibus motion and an appendix spelling out the allegations were sealed, that is, until Hyland opened them Tuesday afternoon. Troupis, attorney Kenneth Chesebro, and Trump campaign aide Michael Roman face multiple counts on trumped-up forgery and fraud charges stemming from their efforts to file a slate of alternate or contingent electors to protect Trump's electoral votes while the president contested the results of the 2020 election. Democrat Joe Biden claimed the critical swing state's 10 electoral votes, but Trump sued in the wake of myriad voting irregularities and legal questions in the COVID-plagued presidential election. The defendants face decades in prison on the piled-on charges filed by Democrat State Attorney General Josh Kaul nearly 4 years after the election. Hyland, according to the unsealed filings, had the help of a former fellow judge in putting together the August opinion. The omnibus motion alleges that retired Dane County Judge Frank Remington wrote much of the order denying the dismissal motion, which the motion argues would be a clear breach of judicial ethics and Wisconsin law. It would also present a personal conflict. Troupis, a former Dane County judge and an extremely rare conservative one at that, was not everyone's cup of tea, the defendant's attorney Joe Bugney wrote. This apparently included the retired judge, who the defense believes wrote the August 22nd order. Judge Remington was, to put it mildly, not a fan of my client when they were in practice or when they were colleagues on the bench, Bugney alleges. Moreover, Judge Remington retired from the bench on May 3rd. Before the motions were ripe, we filed a reply on May 12th. How does Troupis' legal team know that Remington wrote the order? Well, they enlisted the services of Georgetown professor Natalie Schilling, an internationally recognized forensic linguistics expert who has logged a lot of hours on cases involving authorship attribution. And Schilling, according to the affidavit she signed, found Hyland's sardonic order brimming with Remington's distinct style. She compared several court documents written by Remington to the Hyland order and discovered that style was parroted throughout. Reviewing some of the retired judge's prior orders, they all had the same flavor. They were written in the first person, they had the same structure, and often had the same sardonic tone, Schilling wrote. What tipped Troupis' legal team off? Bugney said he shared Hyland's order within his office. His colleagues quickly suspected that the judge had not written the ruling. Bugney added that an attorney who represented Troupis in a related civil case told him he suspected Remington wrote it based on the style and tone. The initial suspicion proved even more credible, Bugney wrote, when Remington's son, a law clerk, appeared in the order's metadata. Given the father-son relationship and what seems the indisputable evidence that the retired judge wrote much of this court's order denying Troupis' motions, the defense can show the appearance of impropriety, the motion asserts. The unsealed court document also alleges Hyland confirmed in a meeting with Bugney and prosecutors that he had not worked with Remington's son before, yet he had received a draft of an order from the law clerk before Hyland had read all the case's briefs. Troupis' attorney notes a similar misconduct case in which a Milwaukee Circuit Court judge farmed out opinion writing to a professor friend. The judicial panel found the judge had engaged in judicial misconduct. Remington could not be reached for comment on Tuesday. In his ruling letting the defendants know he was staying on the case, Hyland disputes Remington was involved in the writing of his August order. The court is satisfied that no person other than the assigned staff attorney and I had a hand in drafting or editing the decision which this court signed and entered, the judge wrote. Hyland insisted he held no personal animus or prejudice toward any of the litigants and that the parties could expect him to be fair and impartial. But the fog of partiality hangs over the entire case, a prosecution that's part of a national leftist lawfare campaign against the Democrats' top political enemy and his agenda. Kaul and his friends in the accomplice media have labeled the 2020 alternate elector strategy used in past elections as a fake elector scheme meant to overturn Biden's win. Curiously, the highly partisan attorney general who previously worked for the law firm that helped deliver the Russia collusion hoax didn't bring charges until after Trump had secured his third GOP nomination. If the proceedings stay on schedule, Democrats will have their 2020 rehash trial in the thick of the 2026 midterm campaigns. Political theater, a Trump trial by proxy to remind voters falsely and audaciously what a threat the MAGA movement is to democracy. In the meantime, Troupis and his co-defendants argue that they won't get a fair shake from a judge in a liberal circuit court they believe has stacked the deck against them. So, There it is, guys, once again from thefederalist.com. And of course, I will keep you guys updated on this. This judge sounds completely and utterly freaking corrupt. So, I will certainly bring you guys whatever comes next in this unbelievable story of lawfare and judicial bias. Next one here comes from the Gateway Pundit. Judge in New York orders release of Epstein documents. We got even more today, guys. A federal judge in New York on Wednesday ordered the release of Jeffrey Epstein documents related to a 2019 sex trafficking case. In July, U.S. Attorney General Pam Bondi and Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche filed a motion asking a federal court to release grand jury transcripts associated with the Epstein cases. The court documents are related to the 2019 grand jury indictment charging Jeffrey Epstein with sex trafficking offenses and the June 2020 grand jury indictment of Ghislaine Maxwell with numerous offenses related to the trafficking and coercion of minors. Since July 6, 2025, there has been extensive public interest in the basis for the memorandum's conclusions. While the Department of Justice and Federal Bureau of Investigation continue to adhere to the conclusions reached in the memorandum, transparency to the American public is of the utmost importance to this administration, they wrote in a court filing reviewed by the Gateway Pundit. Given the public interest in the investigative work conducted by the Department of Justice and Federal Bureau of Investigation into Epstein, the Department of Justice moves the court to unseal the underlying grand jury transcripts in United States v. Epstein, subject to appropriate redactions of victim-related and other personal identifying information, they said. The judges initially declined to unseal the Epstein records, citing grand jury secrecy. However, Manhattan Judge Richard Berman unsealed the documents after President Trump signed the Epstein Files Transparency Act. CNN reported a federal judge on Wednesday approved the unsealing of documents from the investigation and criminal prosecution of accused sex trafficker Jeffrey Epstein. The decision from Manhattan Judge Richard M. Berman comes one day after a different New York judge approved the release of records in the case against Epstein's associate Ghislaine Maxwell, and 1 week after a third judge in Florida also approved the release of investigative materials there. Last month, President Trump signed the Epstein Files Transparency Act into law to release all files related to the Jeffrey Epstein investigation. As the Gateway Pundit reported, the House overwhelmingly voted for the bill, with only one Republican defector, Representative Clay Higgins, voting against the bill, citing privacy concerns for victims of Epstein. The Senate later approved the bill by unanimous consent. The president called on Congress to pass the bill, stating, "We have nothing to hide, and it's time to move on from this Democrat hoax perpetrated by radical left lunatics in order to deflect from the great success of the Republican Party, including our recent victory on the Democrat shutdown." So there is that, guys, once again from thegatewaypundit.com. Of course, I will keep you guys updated on all things Epstein as we move forward, but we've seen a slew of orders from judges recently allowing the release of grand jury materials and other documents relating to both Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell. So there it is. Next one here from the National Pulse. Tim Walz promises more Somali immigration to Minnesota amid billion-dollar fraud scandal. So here they go again. The Democrats virtue signaling to the illegal immigrants. This is the Democrats' electoral plan, by the way. Let unlimited illegal immigrants into the country, naturalize them, allow them to vote, and then there you go. You'll never get a Republican in office again, right? That's the plan. So they're doing it over there in Minnesota. Minnesota Governor Tim Walz pledged to bring even more Somali immigrants to his state during a speech at a Tuesday fundraising event for Washington Governor Bob Ferguson in Seattle. "Instead of demonizing our Somali community, we're going to do more to welcome more in," Walz said, despite his administration facing increasing federal scrutiny over its handling of widespread social services fraud connected to the Somali community, which saw an alleged $1 billion in taxpayer money stolen. The failed Democrat vice presidential nominee criticized federal immigration enforcement actions in Minnesota, claiming our neighbors are being demonized and that the state's immigrant community was being terrorized by the Trump administration. Walz echoed a favorite far-left trope, stating illegal immigrants in his state were literally picked up off the streets by U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement agents. "These folks better not ever mistake our kindness for our weakness, because we are going to defend our neighbors," the Minnesota Democrat said, in an apparent warning to federal immigration officials in the Trump administration. The luncheon, held at the Washington State Convention Center, was attended by over 1,000 supporters, with some paying up to $2,500 for a table. Walz received a standing ovation. The Walz administration in Minnesota is facing mounting allegations that it actively ignored evidence of rampant welfare fraud schemes perpetrated by Somali immigrants in the state. The National Pulse reported last week that whistleblowers with the Minnesota Department of Education claim state officials first uncovered evidence of fraud involving the Feeding Our Future nonprofit organization in July 2019. However, the whistleblowers allege Governor Walz and state officials backed down from investigating the group after intense pushback from Feeding Our Future's leaders who accused state officials of discrimination against Minnesota's Somali community. Yeah, it's like, oh, you're investigating us for fraud, or you're thinking about investigating us for fraud? That's racist, they say. And the Democrats, they just go, okay, we won't investigate you. And then, what do you know? $1 billion in taxpayer money dissipates like a fart in the wind. Let's go ahead and check it out. Here's Walz saying, instead of, getting rid of the people that are literally defrauding our state, stealing taxpayer money, and causing crime to be rampant, we're just going to bring more of them in. We're just going to keep bringing them in. Here he is. Yeah, here he is.
On Thanksgiving Eve, playing Yahtzee to take money from my nieces and nephews, and we gamble a little bit on our Yahtzee in our house, and I get a drive-by slur from the president. What type of place have we gotten to when on Thanksgiving, the President of the United States is apparently sequestered in a room, ranting and calling random governors the R word? If that wouldn't be bad enough, then his failed sons add in and throw that stuff at my children. And then they pile on and start demonizing the entire community of our Somali community in Minnesota that we're incredibly proud of. And ask for it. So the response to that, and I keep saying this, when you see a man like Bob Ferguson, accomplished, compassionate, a dedicated father in his community, humble, effective, compassionate, effective, again, going back to that. But I mentioned earlier today, and I think now in this moment we need to be very clear about this. With this governor, with any Democratic governor, with any of us, these folks better not ever mistake our kindness for weakness, because we are going to stand in that breach. We are going to protect our neighbors, and we're going to advocate things that make a difference. And so, you know this, but I think it's important in this moment for us to gather together, for us to figure out, I don't know how to do it, because these guys bring out the worst in me. I hate when I get to that point where it gets petty. I hate when the sense of anger comes upon you. But the antidote to that is positive actions to improve lives that go against what they're trying to do. So,
excuse me, but what has the Democrat Party done that's been positive in the past 50 freaking years? I just don't get it. The only thing positive I see going on in this country right now is coming directly from the Trump administration. You're saying you want to fight against what they're doing, and somehow that's positive. It's not. And you know what's also not positive? Bringing more Somali immigrants into Minnesota or anywhere else in this country. They don't contribute to the country. They are a drain on resources. They increase the crime. They just stole $1 billion freaking dollars in taxpayer money through welfare fraud in your state. And you failed to even lift a finger to investigate them because you didn't want to be called racist. This is the problem with the Democrats, guys. Unbelievable to me that people out there are still stupid enough to vote for this crap. Why would you vote for civilizational suicide? That's what these people stand for. It's civilizational suicide. I just don't get it, guys. Just totally don't get it. Sulfanol out there with a shade says, if the Minnesota fraud is fixed, it should stop now, right? No more fraud coming, right? Yeah, one would like to think so, but I'm sure they'll figure out some other way to defraud the system, Sulfanol. I'm sure they will. There it is. Once again, Sulfanol, thank you very much for the very generous shades there. Much appreciated. Let's go ahead and move on to the next one here, which comes out of the GatewayPundit.com. Somali Minnesota college student posts video threatening ICE agents, saying, quote, "You're going to get popped the next time I see you." Somali Minnesota college student Hassan Mohammed posted a profanity-filled rant against ICE, that included threats to pop agents the next time they show up in his Owatonna neighborhood. In the video, Muhammad raged, "ICE, I actually heard you guys pulled up to Owatonna, the Big O, and you pulled up when I was not there. Y'all pussy ass shit boy," he says. "So you're gonna get popped next time I see you. Bring the whole cavalry. Yeah, boy, you guys are scared," he said. Though it appears Muhammad removed the original video from TikTok, it has already gone viral. He attempted to walk back the bravado in a follow-up message claiming he was just trying to be funny. After his clip sparked widespread backlash, Muhammad posted a handful of follow-up videos Tuesday apologizing for the lapse in my judgment. "I don't expect to be forgiven, I'm just here to apologize," he said. "I truly did not mean what I said, I was just trying to be funny." ICE has increased actions in Minnesota as part of Operation Metro Surge in the Twin Cities region. Last week, the Department of Homeland Security announced in just days, ICE has arrested vicious criminals who were allowed to roam Minneapolis streets thanks to sanctuary policies, arresting some of the worst criminal illegal aliens, including child sex offenders, domestic abusers, and violent gang members. Homeland Security Assistant Secretary Tricia McLaughlin noted, "Sanctuary policies and politicians like Tim Walz and Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey allowed these pedophiles, domestic terrorists, and gang members to roam the streets and terrorize Americans." ICE law enforcement are risking their lives to protect Minnesotans while their own elected officials sit by and do nothing. No matter when and where, ICE will find, arrest, and deport all criminal illegal aliens. While Democrats complain about efforts to make America safer and foment increased threats against ICE agents, the agency continues its work, noting on X, Minnesota's weather is cloudy with a 100% chance of ice. So, there is that, guys, once again, from thegatewaypundit.com. And here is this absolute freaking smooth brain threatening ICE with death. Probably a bad idea. I look forward to probably announcing this guy's arrest in the next couple of days. Here we go.
I actually heard you guys pulled up to Owatonna, the Big O, and you pulled up when I was not there? Oh, so puss ass shit, boy. You gonna get popped next time I see you ass. Bring the whole cavalry. Yeah, boy, you guys are scared. Scared of the Stingray, baby. Woo!
I can guarantee you that ICE is not afraid of this kid. What I can guarantee you, though, is that he's the one afraid because he's most likely going to get arrested for this. You can't make violent threats against law enforcement, even if you claim a little bit later on in a follow-up post, "Oh, I was just joking." Yeah, bud, doesn't happen that way. Doesn't work that way. So enjoy what's probably going to end up being a jail sentence. Next one here comes from the National Pulse. College official accused of attempting to stop ICE arrest of student predator, which is a felony, by the way. So here we go. The Department of Homeland Security is accusing staff members at a private college in Minneapolis, Minnesota, more from Minnesota, of attempting to interfere with U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement agents in the process of arresting a student who is an illegal immigrant and a registered sex offender. According to DHS, agents were successful in detaining Jesus Saucedo Portillo, who also has a prior DUI conviction, despite the attempted intervention by Augsburg University employees and campus security. On December 6th, ICE officers arrested Jesus Saucedo Portillo, a criminal illegal alien, while he was getting into his vehicle. He is a registered sex offender and has a previous arrest for driving while intoxicated. The university administrator and campus security attempted to obstruct the arrest, DHS stated in a post on X, continuing, "Our officers told the school administrator and campus security that ICE had a warrant for the illegal alien's arrest." Probably while these morons screamed, like, "Leave the illegal immigrant criminal alone," right? And also registered sex offenders. So leave the rapist alone, he's our rapist, they say. Despite the warrant, DHS states that the Augsburg University administrator told ICE officers they were violating university policies. Guess what? United States law supersedes your stupid university policies. How do these people not understand this? Like, your university policies are not more important than the law. The law is certainly a lot more important than your university policies. So there's that. Anyways, at this point, ICE officers informed them that federal law supersedes any university policy. And that, if campus security would not stop blocking the law enforcement vehicle from exiting, they will be obstructing justice. Frankly, they should just be charged with obstructing justice. The university administrator proceeded to order campus security to block the ICE vehicle, according to DHS. Our officers followed their training to use the minimum amount of force necessary to clear the area and successfully arrested this criminal illegal alien, the agency said. It's too bad they didn't get to use rubber bullets on these morons. Following the incident, Augsburg University President Paul Pribenow, speaking with Minnesota Public Radio, defended his staff's actions. Pribenow claimed the ICE agents did not present a warrant and that the arrest of Saucedo Portillo was illegal. In addition, he alleged the ICE agents drew their weapons on staff and students who were present at the scene. According to Pribenow, the students alerted school security, which subsequently set off a protocol for when ICE is on campus. No college in the country should have a protocol for when ICE is on campus other than leave them the hell alone and don't get in their damn way. So ridiculous, dude. We're proud of students for the fact that they did that, despite the kind of hectic and traumatic nature of the event itself, Pribenow said. So, there is that, guys, once again from the nationalpulse.com. Clearly, higher education in this country is still, very unfortunately, overtaken by Marxist ass clowns. So, there is that. Leave our rapist alone. He's our rapist, they say. Next one here comes from the National Pulse as well. Trump DOJ dismantles race-based disparate impact rules, which is fantastic news for actual civil rights in this country. So good to see them moving on this. The Department of Justice has announced the final rule that eliminates all disparate impact liability from its Title VI regulations. This significant change restores the original intent of the Civil Rights Act of 1964, which prohibits discrimination based on race, color, and national origin in federally funded programs and activities. Previously, policies that were race-neutral could be challenged if they resulted in different outcomes among racial groups. This disparate impact standard did not require proof of intentional discrimination, only statistical disparities. In most cases, the demonstration of disparate impact would result in DOJ litigation or regulatory action. The new rule, issued late Tuesday, mandates that all future Title VI cases handled by the DOJ will now require evidence of intentional discrimination and not simply a statistical demonstration of disparate impact. In April, President Donald J. Trump issued an executive order directing his administration to end the use of the disparate impact standard, with White House officials contending the policy forced government agencies, schools, and private companies to make race-based decisions out of fear of legal action. Addressing the end of the disparate impact standard, Attorney General Pam Bondi stated, for decades, the Justice Department has used disparate impact liability to undermine the constitutional principle that all Americans must be treated equally under the law. Assistant Attorney General Harmeet K. Dillon noted that the previous regulations encouraged lawsuits without evidence of actual discrimination. So, there is that, guys, once again from the nationalpulse.com. Another nail in the coffin of wokeness, it would seem. Very, very happy to see this, and hopefully they continue fixing what the Democrats have broken when it comes to civil rights in this country. So there is that. Next one here comes from the Gateway Pundit. Clinton-appointed judge blocks Trump's National Guard deployment to Los Angeles. So, yet again, a left-wing judge out there trying to throw a monkey wrench into the cogs here. A federal judge has blocked President Donald Trump's deployment of National Guard troops in Los Angeles. U.S. District Judge Charles Breyer declared the deployment illegal and ordered the troops returned to state control under California Governor Gavin Newsom. The decision stems from Trump's deployment of thousands of National Guard troops to Los Angeles this summer amid violent protests and riots tied to immigration enforcement. While most troops were withdrawn, an extension kept approximately 300 California National Guard members under federal control until February, with about 100 remaining in the city and 200 redirected to Oregon. California officials, including Newsom and Attorney General Rob Bonta, filed a lawsuit challenging the federalization of state troops. Breyer sided with the state in his 35-page opinion, arguing that Trump lacked the statutory authority under laws that allow such deployments only in cases of invasion, rebellion, or when the president cannot execute federal laws with regular forces. The judge emphasized that there was no current demonstration of impaired law enforcement, stating the founders designed our government to be a system of checks and balances. Defendants, however, make clear that the only check they want is a blank one. Breyer added, without a demonstration that the president's ability to execute the law is currently being impeded at the time of deployment, he lacks adequate grounds for federalization. The judge has paused his ruling until Monday to give the Justice Department time to appeal, potentially escalating the case to higher courts, and I'm guessing that's exactly what they're going to end up doing. The White House fired back, defending the president's actions. President Trump exercised his lawful authority to deploy National Guard troops to support federal officers and assets following violent riots that local leaders like Newscomb refused to stop, White House spokeswoman Abigail Jackson said in a statement obtained by The Hill. The White House added, "We look forward to ultimate victory on the issue." So there is that, guys. Once again, from thegatewaypundit.com. And of course, I will keep you guys updated on that litigation as we move forward. I expect the White House to be appealing this decision to a higher court very shortly. So there it is. Next one here comes from thefederalist.com. Campaign finance and the First Amendment take center stage at the Supreme Court of the United States. The 2026 midterms may be a year away, but the battle over rules governing America's elections remains very much ongoing. On Tuesday, the U.S. Supreme Court held oral arguments in National Republican Senatorial Committee versus Federal Election Commission, which centers on a challenge to provisions of the Federal Election Campaign Act that restrict the ability of candidates and political parties to coordinate spending with one another. More specifically, the suit, which was brought in 2022 alongside the National Republican Congressional Committee, then Senator J.D. Vance, and then Representative Steve Chabot, I think, contends that these limitations violate the First Amendment. In his opening statement, NRSC counsel Noel Francisco argued that the coordinated party spending limits are at war with the Supreme Court's recent First Amendment cases, and that the prevailing theory is that they're needed to prevent an individual donor from laundering a $44,000 donation through the party to a particular candidate in exchange for official action. But that Rube Goldberg theory, he reasoned, fails for the same reasons this court rejected it in McCutcheon versus FEC. First, it's unlikely to work because the donor has to cede control of his money to the party committees, which have their own interests. Second, it's already prevented by other things, including the $44,000 base limit, the earmarking rule, disclosure requirements, and the bribery laws, Francisco said. And third, there's no need for it, since a would-be briber would be better off just giving a massive donation to the candidate's favorite super PAC. That's why no one has identified a single case in which a donor has actually laundered a bribe to a candidate through a party's coordinated spending, even though 28 states allow it. The NRSC's arguments, unsurprisingly, faced pushback from the court's Democrat appointees, including Associate Justice Sonia Sotomayor. And expressing her concerns to Francisco about what would happen if SCOTUS were to take off this coordinated expenditure limit, the Obama appointee appeared to take a cheap shot at Elon Musk's support for President Trump in the 2024 election and his subsequent appointment to lead the Department of Government Efficiency. You mean to suggest that the fact that no one major donor to the current president, the most major donor to the current president, got a very lucrative job immediately upon election from the new administration does not give the appearance of a quid pro quo, Sotomayor asked? Francisco said that while he's not 100% sure about the example that Sotomayor is looking at, if he thinks he knows what she's talking about, he has a hard time thinking that his salary that he drew from the federal government was an effective quid pro quo bribery, which may be why nobody has even remotely suggested that to be the case. Maybe not the salary, but certainly the lucrative government contracts might be, Sotomayor replied. Meanwhile, Roman Martinez, who was appointed to argue in defense of the restrictions after the federal government sided with plaintiffs, spent much of his speaking time arguing that SCOTUS should dismiss plaintiffs' case as moot because there is an absence of any real-world credible enforcement threat, and Vance has repeatedly denied having any concrete plan to run for office in 2028. Petitioners say that uncertainty is enough to prevent mootness. That's wrong as a matter of law, Martinez said. Even if you disagreed with me about Vice President Vance's standing because of his concrete plan to run, there's also the absence of any real-world credible enforcement threat. The executive order bars the FEC from enforcing the law. No one thinks President Trump is going to enforce this law and target his own vice president. Martinez's argument about Vance's plans for the 2028 election didn't appear to pass the smell test for Associate Justice Samuel Alito. The Bush appointee specifically pressed the attorney on at what point a vice president or a one-term president potentially seeking to run in the next election will be able to challenge a provision like this. Under a hypothetical posed by the justice, Martinez denied that his standard would require such candidates to hire consultants and have a big event to announce his intent to run before they could have standing. It did say, however, that the analytical question is, when does he have a concrete plan, at which point you're going to have to look to evidence in the public and the record, etc., about what that plan is. I'll tell you when it's not satisfied. It's not satisfied when the candidate says in comments published today that a 2028 run is something that could happen. It's something that might not happen, Martinez said. Isn't that what all potential candidates always say until the day when they make the announcement, Alito asked. That's what they always say. Martinez went on to note that potential candidates who have and have not gone on to run for office employ such rhetoric. He then pivoted to Vance and claimed that the easiest thing in the world that the vice president could have done to address the alleged mutinous issue was to have come forward and say, I have a concrete plan to run. Clearly aghast, Alito asked, are you serious? Are you serious? Martinez responded that he was. Another particularly vocal justice during the hearing was Brett Kavanaugh. When questioning parties on both sides of the issue, the Trump appointee repeatedly emphasized his concerns about how the amalgamation of campaign finance laws and past Supreme Court decisions have together reduced the power of political parties as compared to outside groups with negative effects on our constitutional democracy. Should we be concerned about the overall architecture of our jurisprudence having weakened or disadvantaged political parties as compared to outside groups? Kavanaugh asked Principal Deputy Solicitor General Sarah Harris, who argued in NRSC's favor on behalf of the Trump administration. I think you should be concerned with that, Harris said. I think the even greater concern beyond the disadvantage to political parties that was wrought when FECA sort of overturned over a century's worth of uninhibited coordination between parties and candidates is just the seesawing of the court's jurisprudence that would happen if Colorado, too, remained an outlier and remained in place to sow mischief. Also granted the ability to appear in Tuesday's hearing was infamous Russia collusion hoaxer Mark Elias, who argued in opposition to the NRSC's case on behalf of the Democratic National Committee. The left-wing attorney's often incoherent ramblings were specifically called out by Associate Justice Clarence Thomas, who, after enduring one of Elias's diatribes, said, I still don't understand what you're saying. So there is that. A decision in NRSC versus FEC is not expected until sometime next year. But there it is, guys, once again, from thefederalist.com. And here are some of the, here is some of the audio from the oral arguments today. Mark Elias going on a diatribe and then basically getting shut down by one of the justices. Here we go.
Thank you, Counsel. Justice Thomas?
Just so I'm clear, is there any First Amendment interest in coordinated expenditures?
Your Honor, I think that there is an interest, a First Amendment interest in coordinated expenditures in two regards. Number one, there is an interest anytime any entity or person wishes to make a contribution to a political committee, they are expressing First Amendment speech. They are engaged in First Amendment speech. Buckley said that is satisfied by allowing them to contribute. So essentially the speech is in the first dollar. It is in showing support for that candidate, and that's why the contribution limits could be $3,500, because the idea to contribution limit candidates, because though the donor is engaged in First Amendment activity, engaged in First Amendment speech, it is essentially symbolic speech. It's the act of giving money. So that's number one. Number two, I think this case would be a very different one if the as-applied challenge, first of all, if it was an as-applied challenge, but second, if it was an as-applied challenge where what the party wanted was its own speech and it wanted to coordinate that speech with the candidate. That would pose a very different case. And there would be different considerations on how that could be limited, which is why in 1996, the brief of the Democratic Party went to what the scope of coordination was, that there should be less of a sweep of what is considered coordinated. But if you're saying, is there First Amendment speech with respect to paying the bills of a campaign so that the campaign staff stayed at a hotel, it is just in the act of making the donation. It's just in the act of making the in-kind contribution.
I still don't understand what you're saying. If the party coordinates with the candidate and pays the bill, is that speech, or does that have a First Amendment protection, or is it simply, as you say, a bill-paying exercise?
It is speech. It is speech, and under Buckley, what it is treated as is a contribution, and therefore, though it is speech, it is subject to limit by Congress on how much can be spent in engaging in that speech.
Well, no, because it's speech, it can't actually be limited by the federal government or any government within the borders of the United States. That's kind of what the First Amendment freaking says. So, I feel like I don't even need to say this, but Mark Elias is just dead freaking wrong. So there is that, guys. Once again, from thefederalist.com, they say that a decision on this is not expected soon. It's not expected until sometime next year. So I'll let you guys know, I guess, sometime next year, what they decide. J2 Dank out there with the can. Thank you very much for the can, J2 Dank, as always. Really appreciate that. We're now at 11% to the goal for the day. Let's go ahead and move on to the next one here, which comes from justthenews.com. FDA is investigating deaths across multiple age groups potentially linked to COVID vaccination, according to HHS. And really, the next story after this is quite horrifying when you consider this story. So let's go ahead and take a look. The U.S. Food and Drug Administration is investigating deaths across multiple age groups that are potentially linked to COVID-19 vaccination, according to the Department of Health and Human Services. FDA is doing a thorough investigation across multiple age groups of deaths potentially related to COVID vaccines, HHS spokesperson Andrew Nixon told Agence France Presse on Tuesday. Initially, the review focused on possible child deaths, which FDA Commissioner Dr. Marty Makary announced in September. Last month, a leaked memo from a senior FDA official claimed COVID vaccines have been linked to at least 10 infant deaths, reportedly without citing evidence. So there is that. Once again, guys, from justthenews.com, the FDA is looking into deaths across multiple age groups linked to the COVID vaccination. I'll let you guys know what ends up happening there. Next story, though, is quite horrifying when you consider that previous story. High school senior escorted from school for following doctor's orders and skipping vaccine booster. A high school senior in a Western New York school has been banned because she did not get a vaccine booster that causes her to have serious side effects. Depew High School senior Casey Ray was escorted out of a school on October 16th because she did not get a meningitis booster shot, according to WKBW-TV. I just sit and scroll. There's really not much else I could do, she said. It's more emotional with it being my senior year. I feel like I'm shunned from Depew. They wouldn't let me say goodbye to teachers. They wouldn't let me go into the classroom, Ray said. I was in tears. It was hard. It was truly devastating, honestly. She's now in limbo because the email she used to connect with the school was recently disabled. She had a leg pain, Andrea Billy, Ray's mother, said. You know, when you're younger, having growing pains, that's what we thought. Then it progressed. Her legs will turn purple and go numb. Casey's aunt Shannon told WBEN-AM that at first we kind of almost ignored it because we were like, is she just trying to get attention for it? But then she started showing us her legs when she would get these flares. Her legs started to model. I don't know if anybody knows what that is. It's almost like a marbling of your skin, and essentially it's a vasospasm of your legs. So her legs would blanch, turn colors, and she would get this pain. It's disabling for her, Shannon said, indicating the problems have not gone away. She's had her friends give her piggyback rides because her legs would literally hurt her. There was a time where she collapsed at her softball game, which the school nurse was her softball coach, and her softball coach witnessed all of this, she said. And she was in softball 2-3 years ago, and she would actually have to sit out mid-game because her pain would start to flare from the high-intensity activity, and her teammates would be there rolling their bats on her legs, Shannon said, adding that the school was told of this. Billy said her daughter has had multiple tests that have come up empty. The only factor that we came to a conclusion on was this all started after she got the vaccine, she said. One of the side effects is joint pain, so he then wrote the exemption that she cannot receive this because some people do have reactions after the vaccine, and unfortunately, my daughter was one of them, Billy said, referring to a doctor that the family saw. She said the school will not accept the doctor's note, claiming he is not licensed in New York State. The school principal, she said, told me my note was suspicious because I had one doctor write one and then I had another doctor write one. And I don't know if in their head, in Depew's head, that I was doctor hopping, which I wasn't. She's vaccinated up until this point. She has gotten every vaccine on time. It's just that this one didn't agree with her. The family will go to court if necessary, she said. The school gave WKBW a statement. The district acknowledges that one or more former students of the district were excluded from attending school this year due to lack of immunization. The students or students' parents have been advised both verbally and in writing of the basis for such exclusion, the statement said. Parents are further advised that they become responsible to homeschool their children or adhere to the process of immunization to permit their child or children to return to school. Further, parents are advised of their right to appeal the school building's decision to the New York State Commissioner of Education, the statement said. So There is that, guys, once again from thegatewaypundit.com. Public schools across the country, especially in blue states like New York, still have massive flipping problems, and the unbelievable vaccination requirements are among them. So there is that. Next one here from the Epic Times. Arizona will remove DEI from public schools, which is fantastic news and actually kind of surprising considering who is currently governor of Arizona. So here we go. The Arizona Board of Education will remove language from K-12 curricula and policies that promote progressive racial and gender ideology and violate civil rights laws, says Superintendent of Public Instruction Tom Horne this week. The state superintendent of public instruction, Tom Horne, said this week. The move complies with President Donald Trump's executive order prohibiting DEI practices in education, which also includes preferential hiring based on race, affinity groups organized by race, gender, and religion, and mandatory diversity training. Critical race theory, non-racist math, whatever the hell that means, and LGBT story hours are examples of DEI in student instruction. Horne said public schools in his state risk losing $866 million in federal funding if these changes are not made. This is a major funding cut, so starting this process is vital to addressing this situation, Horne said in a December 8th news release. There is a philosophical issue at stake, too. All people should be judged based on their character and ability, not their race or ethnicity. DEI language and programs promote the exact opposite, and they have no place in the classroom. The process begins next month, with a draft of revisions expected in September. A working group for this task should include representation from all 15 counties, including teachers and administrators, according to the news release. The Arizona Education Association Teachers Union opposes the measure, saying students who are still learning English will be impacted and that important history lessons on the Navajo Code Talkers, the Tuskegee Airmen, and female Air Force pilots will be eliminated. It could also end programs that protect students from sexual assaults. We are concerned that efforts to eliminate DEI programming within Arizona public schools could have similar unintended consequences, robbing Arizona students of their ability to learn the history of their state and nation and preventing important programming designed to keep them safe, Arizona Education Association President Marisol Garcia wrote in a December 4th letter to the Board of Education. Honestly, complete and utter horse crap. A glance at the websites for two larger districts in the state, Mesa Public Schools and Phoenix Union, shows no indication that DEI is deeply ingrained in the school's mission, goals, curriculum, or policies, which is drastically different from many other counterparts from the West Coast or in northeastern cities. Neither district has a dedicated office for DEI, equity, affirmative action, or something similar, but Phoenix Union does have affinity groups for students, which could come under scrutiny in the months ahead. This includes an African American club, a Black Student Union, a Gay Straight Alliance, a Gender Sexualities Alliance, a Native American club, and a Society for Female Scholars, according to its website. So there is that, guys, once again from theepictimes.com. And with that, we are at that halfway mark. So get ready to follow us over to pilled.net for the rest of the show, guys. Plenty more news to get into here, and looking forward to covering the rest. There are two links you guys can use to follow us over to Pilled.net, and I do recommend you use that first link. That's a welcome link. It's going to help you get set up on Pilled. Grab yourself your username. It's going to show you how to subscribe to my channel on Pilled, how you can get notifications when I go live, and all that good stuff. So I do recommend you guys use that second link, the first link, if you want to get set up on Pilled. If you want a very quick and easy way to just come on over to Pilled and watch the rest of the show, though, you can always use that second link, which will take you over to my channel with one single click. Next story here comes from thefederalist.com. We're going to play a quick video here for Pilled, and then we'll be right back into the news on the other end of that. I'll see you guys in less than 60 seconds. Here we go.
Pilled.net is proud to host The Breakdown, exclusively on the true home of free speech. To continue watching the show, we are here to help you over to Pilled. If you're new to the platform, just click on the welcome link. It will automatically walk you through signing up for your free account. If you already have a Pilled account, follow the link provided to take you directly to the Season Pixels stream. We are excited to have you join the Pilled family. And if you have any questions at all, just email support@pilled.net. Enjoy the rest of the breakdown with Season Pixels, exclusively on Pilled.net. Free speech lives here.
Indeed, free speech lives over at Pilled.net. Follow us over, guys. We have a whole lot more news to get into, and looking forward to covering the rest. I'll see you guys on Pilled. All right, guys, let's go ahead.